When Raul Montero, a young millionaire known for closing impossible deals, walked into the maternity ward on the day his son was born, he believed it would be the beginning of the happiest chapter of his life. But when the delivery room door opened, nothing could prepare him for the tragedy waiting on the other side. Instead of Helena's smile, he received the news that shattered every certainty his money had ever given him. She hadn't survived the childbirth. And in the days that followed, as Raul struggled to make sense of his new reality, something even more worrying began to appear. Little Leonardo didn't react to sounds, didn't turn when called, and made no attempts to speak. Doctors, one after another, confirmed what Raul feared most. The boy could not hear. He would likely never speak. For the first time in his life, the man who had always been able to buy solutions was facing a problem no amount of money could fix. But what he didn't know was that the true turning point would come from the most unexpected place, from someone who carried her own story of silence. What really happened to Leonardo, and how could an unknown waitress become the key to a miracle science could never fully explain? Before we dive into this emotional story, comment below where you're watching from today, and if you enjoy tales filled with twists and heart, don't forget to subscribe. Raul Montero had always been the kind of man people looked at with confidence. He was young, successful, and known for closing the biggest deals in the city. He moved through life with the certainty of someone who believed everything had a price and every problem had a solution if the wallet was full enough. But all that strength, all that control, disappeared on the day his son was born. Raul still remembered standing in the hospital hallway, holding Helena's hand before she was taken into the delivery room. He had imagined a future where the three of them would walk out together, laughing and tired, ready to start a new chapter. Instead, he walked out alone hours later, carrying a newborn wrapped in a soft blanket. The doctor's words repeated in his mind, but none of them softened the pain. Helena had not survived the birth. Raul stared at the tiny face of the baby in his arms and felt a heavy silence settle inside his chest. It was the first time in his life that money, power, and influence meant nothing. The hospital doors opened behind him, but he felt like the world had stopped. All he had now was his son, Leonardo, and a hollow space where his wife should have been. As the years passed, Raul tried to give Leonardo everything he could. He bought toys, clothes, and anything that seemed useful, hoping to fill his son's world with color and comfort. He tried to be both mother and father, despite having no idea how to do either role well. At first, Raul told himself that Leonardo was simply quiet, maybe a child who took longer to speak than others. But small signs began to worry him. When he called Leonardo's name, the boy did not turn. When a door slammed or a glass fell, the child did not flinch. Raul clapped his hands behind him one day, trying to get a response, but Leonardo kept playing with his blocks, unaware of the sound. Raul tried again and again, raising his voice, moving closer, touching the boy's shoulder. That was the only moment Leonardo reacted. Raul felt confusion growing inside him. Something was wrong, but he did not want to accept it. He had already lost Helena. He was not ready to face another fear. Still, the silence around his child grew harder to ignore. Eventually, Raul called specialists. At first, he hoped the doctors would tell him it was nothing serious, something temporary that could be treated with simple steps. Instead, they ran tests, observed Leonardo closely, and spoke in calm voices that only made Raul more nervous. When the results came back, Raul sat in a small office with white walls and a tidy desk. The doctor explained that Leonardo could not hear. The boy showed no response to sound, even strong ones. There was a possibility that he might never speak either, since hearing plays a large part in learning how to form words. Raul felt the air leave his lungs. It was as if the world had tilted under him again, just like the day Helena died. He looked at his son sitting quietly beside him, not aware of the tension in the room, and wondered how he could help a child trapped in silence. The doctor talked about options, therapies, and support, but Raul barely heard the explanations. All he knew was that this was not a problem he could ignore. Something inside him pushed him to act. Raul had always lived by the belief that everything had a fix if you were willing to pay for it. So he threw himself into the search for a solution. He hired the best doctors he could find. He brought specialists from other countries. He traveled with Leonardo to clinics known for advanced treatments. He paid for the most modern equipment and the most careful examinations. Each doctor repeated similar words, always in a soft tone, as if preparing him for disappointment. They explained that Leonardo's condition was severe, and that even with interventions there was no guarantee he would hear properly. Raul refused to accept that. Every time a doctor said there were limits, he found another doctor who claimed to know a different approach. But after months of appointments, flights, and bills, the truth remained the same. Nothing changed. Leonardo still lived in silence. Raul sat in his office one night, surrounded by folders and receipts, feeling more helpless than he ever had. He had spent fortunes, but the silence in his home stayed the same. Meanwhile, Leonardo grew older, and the gap between him and other children became clearer. Raul watched him try to play, but failed to connect with other kids. While others shouted, laughed, or cried loudly, Leonardo stayed in his own world, calm and distant. He did not point or call for attention. He did not mimic sounds. He simply observed. Raul tried to teach him gestures, but progress was slow. Sometimes Leonardo would look at him with big, quiet eyes, and Raul wondered what his son felt inside. Did he feel lonely? Confused? Or was silence simply normal for him? Raul wished Helena were alive. She would have known how to comfort Leonardo better. She would have known how to comfort him too. Instead, Raul faced everything alone. He tried to stay strong, but every night he wished for a miracle, something that would give Leonardo a voice in the world. As time went on, Raul began to understand something painful. Money could not fix everything. He had grown up surrounded by people who believed he was unstoppable, a man who always found a way. But now he looked at his son and realized he was powerless in the face of nature. No contract, no doctor, no expensive machine could change what Leonardo was born with. It scared him more than he liked to admit. Raul had never faced a problem he could not solve with effort or resources. This was the first no life had given him after Helena's death, and it cut deeper than he expected. He wondered if he had failed Leonardo somehow, or if there was something he should have seen earlier. He blamed himself for not understanding sooner, for not noticing the small signs. But no amount of guilt changed the truth. Leonardo was different, and Raul would need to learn how to support him in ways he did not yet understand. Still, Raul refused to give up completely. Even though every expert told him there were limits, he kept searching for new information, hoping for something he had not tried yet. He spent late nights reading, sending messages, and scheduling appointments. But deep down, a quiet realization settled in his heart. This might be one of the few battles he could not win by force or money. He would have to face a different kind of challenge, one that required patience and acceptance rather than power. Raul sat at Leonardo's bedside one night, watching the boy sleep peacefully. In that moment, Raul understood that whether Leonardo ever spoke or not, he was still his son, still the only piece of Helena he had left. The silence was painful, but it did not erase the love he felt. And though Raul did not know it yet, this silence was the beginning of a journey he never expected to take, one that would change him far more than any business deal ever had. Raul continued searching for answers because he wanted to believe that somewhere there had to be a solution for Leonardo. He took his son to the best doctors he could find, both in their country and abroad. Each time they arrived at a new hospital or clinic, Raul hoped this would be the place where everything changed. Specialists ran tests, adjusted machines, and suggested therapies. Some talked about surgeries that might help, though they were risky and not guaranteed. Raul approved anything they recommended, believing the cost didn't matter if it could help Leonardo. Months passed in a routine of flights, waiting rooms, and treatments, but results were always the same. Nothing showed real improvement. Leonardo stayed silent, unaware of the frustration growing around him. Raul felt helpless because for the first time in his life, effort and money were not enough. Every doctor's report felt like another heavy door closing. Still, he continued because stopping felt like giving up on his son, and Raul refused to accept that. But with each failed attempt, the hope he carried slowly began to fade. As Leonardo grew older, Raul noticed his son becoming more and more reserved. The boy avoided contact with other children, even when Raul tried to encourage playdates. Leonardo often hid behind Raul's leg or stayed in a corner, looking at the floor. He did not join games or run around like others his age. Instead, he watched from a distance, unsure how to interact. Raul felt his heart tighten every time he saw this. He wanted Leonardo to feel included, but the boy always moved away from noise and movement. At school activities, Leonardo stayed with the teacher instead of the group. At parks, he sat alone, ignoring calls and gestures. Raul tried to show patience, but deep inside, he battled fear that his son would always feel separated from the world. He wondered if the silence Leonardo lived in made everything around him feel unfamiliar and overwhelming. Raul imagined his son standing in a room full of people but hearing nothing at all. It was a thought that made Raul feel powerless and sad. At home, Leonardo found comfort in drawing. He spent hours with paper and colored pencils creating shapes and scenes that only he seemed to understand. Raul often sat beside him and watched quietly. He could not tell what the drawings meant, but he saw that Leonardo focused deeply on them. Sometimes the boy mixed many bright colors, filling the page until nothing white was left. Other times he drew small figures in corners, leaving large empty spaces. Raul kept each paper, hoping they might reveal something about Leonardo's thoughts. The drawings became the boy's safe place, his way of expressing what he could not say. Raul felt torn when looking at them. On one hand, he was glad Leonardo had something that made him calm. On the other, he wished his son could speak, laugh, or call his name. Raul wanted to understand his world, but Leonardo stayed locked inside it. The silence between them felt heavy, like a wall too high to climb. Raul wondered if he was doing enough, or if somewhere he had failed as a father. Over time, guilt began to follow Raul everywhere. He blamed himself for not finding a solution sooner, for not noticing small signs when Leonardo was a baby. Raul questioned every decision he had made. Maybe he chose the wrong doctors. Maybe he waited too long. Maybe he did not try hard enough. These thoughts kept him awake at night. He would sit alone in his office, staring at photos of Leonardo as a baby, and wondering what he should have done differently. Raul had always believed he could fix any problem with hard work and money, but this situation was different. He felt frustration rising each time he saw Leonardo struggle to communicate. When Leonardo tried to reach for something and could not express what he wanted, Raul felt a sharp pain in his chest. He wanted to help, but he did not know how. He tried to hide his sadness from Leonardo, but children notice more than adults think. Raul often forced a smile for his son, even on days when he felt completely defeated inside. Since Raul did not know how else to make Leonardo happy, he started filling the house with gifts. Every week he brought new toys, games, books, and colorful objects, hoping something would catch his son's interest. Sometimes Leonardo touched the gifts for a few minutes, and then returned to his drawing papers. Other times he ignored them completely. Raul kept buying more anyway because it was the only thing that made him feel like he was doing something. He also set a strict routine, believing structure might help Leonardo feel safer. Their days became predictable. Breakfast at the same time, therapy sessions, quiet afternoons, drawing time, and early bedtime. Raul followed this routine carefully, hoping it would give Leonardo stability. But deep down, he knew these actions were not solving the deeper issue. He was trying to fill a gap he did not know how to reach. Still, he pushed forward because doing nothing felt worse than doing too much. One afternoon, Raul discovered something unexpected. While walking with Leonardo through the city, he noticed the boy slowing down in front of an old diner in the center of town. The place had bright signs, colorful lights, and rows of sweets displayed behind large glass counters. Leonardo's eyes stayed fixed on the colors. Raul stepped inside with him, curious about his son's sudden interest. To his surprise, Leonardo seemed more alert than usual. He looked around the room, watching people come and go, observing how the lights reflected on the jars of candy. Raul brought him back the next week, and Leonardo reacted the same way. He was calm but attentive, almost curious. It was the first place outside their home where Raul saw even a small spark of life in his son. Raul did not understand why the diner had this effect, but he did not question it. If this place made Leonardo feel even a little more alive, then Raul was willing to return as many times as needed. It became a quiet routine, one that brought a small amount of peace to both of them. Raul took Leonardo to the diner on a cold December morning, following the routine they had built over time. The place was warm and bright compared to the street outside, and Raul hoped it would help Leonardo feel calm, the same way it usually did. They walked to their usual table, and Raul removed Leonardo's coat while the boy sat quietly, looking around without much expression. Raul noticed that the diner seemed a bit more crowded than normal. People were talking, moving between tables, and choosing pastries from the glass counter. Then he saw something new, a young waitress wearing a Santa hat, moving quickly from table to table. She looked tired but still managed to smile at each customer she helped. Her presence added a different energy to the place. Raul assumed she must have been hired for the holiday season. When she noticed Raul and Leonardo, she walked over with a polite smile, ready to take their order. Raul prepared to explain his son's condition, something he had to do often, but he did not expect what was about to happen next. The waitress introduced herself as Marina and pulled out a small notepad. Her smile stayed steady, even though Raul could see she seemed to be working hard that morning. When she greeted Leonardo, the boy did not look at her. He kept his eyes on the table, unaware that someone was speaking to him. Marina tried again, a bit more gently, but Leonardo did not react at all. She paused, lowering the notepad slightly, and observed the boy more carefully. Raul immediately felt embarrassed and rushed to explain. He told her that Leonardo did not hear and did not speak, and that he preferred quiet places. Raul expected the usual response, a mixture of pity and confusion. But Marina's expression changed in a different way. She did not look surprised. Instead, something in her eyes softened, as if she understood more than she should. She glanced at Leonardo again, and Raul noticed she seemed affected by something deeper. He wondered if his explanation had made her uncomfortable, but her expression suggested something else entirely. As Marina stood there, watching Leonardo sit in silence, a strange heaviness washed over her. She recognized the boy's distant look, the way his eyes drifted without connecting to the world around him. It was a look she remembered from her own past. Before she could stop herself, memories she had tried to bury came back. She remembered being a child who did not react when people called her name. She remembered her mother speaking, but she could not hear the words. She remembered the frustration of wanting to understand and failing. Marina swallowed hard, trying to stay focused on her job, but the resemblance shook her more than she expected. Raul noticed she had stopped writing and asked if everything was all right. Marina nodded quickly, though she felt her chest tighten. She told him she understood, and Raul assumed she was simply trying to be polite. What he did not know was that Marina was fighting back memories she had not faced in a long time. While Marina tried to stay composed, Raul continued explaining Leonardo's condition in a low voice. He said they had been to many doctors and that nothing had changed. His tone revealed exhaustion and sadness, even though he tried to hide it. Marina listened without interrupting, but every word seemed to pull her deeper into her own past. She remembered her mother, a woman who lived simply but carried strong beliefs. Her mother had been a natural healer, using remedies that most people did not understand or trust. Marina remembered how her mother refused to give up on her, even when others said Marina would never hear or speak. The memories came back in sharp detail, and Marina felt her eyes burn slightly. She blinked fast, hoping Raul would not notice. The connection she felt to Leonardo was immediate and unexpected. She had never met a child like him since her own childhood. She could not explain it, but she felt almost pulled toward the situation, as if she had stepped into a moment she was meant to see. Marina tried to focus on her work again, but the memories would not fade. She could hear her mother's voice in her mind, telling her not to fear what made her different. She remembered the day her life changed, when her mother used a natural method that no doctor believed in. It had been strange and frightening at first, but it gave Marina the ability to hear and eventually speak. That moment had shaped her entire life. Now, looking at Leonardo, she saw a child trapped in the same silence she once lived in. It made her heart ache in a way she had not felt in years. She wondered if this was just coincidence or something more. She had spent a long time avoiding thoughts of her mother because the memories were painful. But standing there, watching Leonardo's blank expression, those memories felt important again. They reminded her of something she thought she had lost, the belief that healing could come from unexpected places. Raul waited patiently as Marina gathered herself, unaware of the emotional storm happening inside her. When she finally lifted her head, her expression had changed. There was still kindness in her eyes, but now there was also determination. She looked at Leonardo with a quiet intensity, as if trying to understand him beyond what she had been told. Raul noticed the shift but did not know what it meant. He thought maybe she felt sorry for them, But Marina was feeling something far more complex. She saw her younger self in Leonardo. She felt an old fear, but also a spark of hope she had not felt in a very long time. For the first time since losing her mother, Marina wondered if she was meant to do something with what she had learned as a child. She did not know how or when, but a small voice inside her whispered that she might be able to help. And that thought stayed with her, even after she walked away from the table to place their order. By the time Marina returned with their drinks, her mind was still racing. Raul thanked her, but she barely heard him. Her focus was on Leonardo, who sat quietly, unaware of everything happening around him. The resemblance between her past and his present would not leave her. It felt like a sign, though she did not dare say it aloud. She had spent years running from anything related to her childhood, because the memories were painful. But now, those memories felt like a bridge connecting her to this child she had just met. Marina felt a mixture of fear and responsibility. She knew she was not a doctor, not a specialist, just a waitress in a holiday hat. But deep inside, something old and familiar warmed inside her. It was the same feeling she once had when her mother helped her, the feeling that miracles sometimes came from simple places. And as Marina watched Leonardo, she began to believe for the first time in years that maybe she could give someone else the same chance she once received. Marina waited for the right moment, watching the tables slowly empty as the morning rush faded. The diner became quieter, with only a few customers remaining. Raul sipped his coffee while Leonardo sat beside him, drawing lines on a napkin with a dull pencil. Marina wiped her hands on her apron, trying to calm her nerves. She knew what she wanted to say, but fear kept her hesitating. Finally, she walked toward their table and stopped a few steps away. She asked Raul if she could talk to him for a moment. Her voice was steady, but her hands shook slightly. Raul looked up, tired and wary. He had heard too many promises, too many miracle solutions that led nowhere. Still, he nodded politely. Marina took a quiet breath and told him she thought she might have a way to help Leonardo. Raul's eyebrows pulled together. He did not answer right away. Instead, he stared at her with a mix of caution and disbelief. He asked what she meant, his tone sharp but controlled. Marina met his gaze without looking away, something inside her urging her to be brave. She knew this might sound strange, but she also knew she could not keep silent anymore. Raul leaned back in his seat, crossing his arms, clearly preparing for another disappointment. He had heard too many suggestions from people who knew nothing about Leonardo's condition. Most of them spoke with confidence but had no real experience. He did not want to be rude, but he wanted to protect himself from more false hope. He asked Marina if she was suggesting medical advice because, if so, he had already tried everything. Marina shook her head firmly. She explained that what she wanted to try was not medical in the usual sense. It was something her mother had done for her long ago. Raul's expression changed slightly. He did not believe in such things, but Marina's voice carried a seriousness that made him pause. She asked him to trust her just for a moment. Raul struggled with the request. He looked at Leonardo, then back at Marina. Something about her determination held him in place. She was not selling anything, not promising anything grand. She simply looked like someone who believed in what she was saying. After a long silence, Raul gave a reluctant nod, though uncertainty still weighed on him. Marina stepped away from the table and walked toward the back of the diner. Raul watched her go, unsure whether he should call her back or let her continue. Leonardo kept drawing, unaware of the tension around him. Marina returned a minute later holding a small glass jar tightly in one hand. Inside it, Raul could see a centipede moving slowly. He stared at it in confusion. His mouth opened, but no words came out at first. When Marina reached the table, he finally managed a brief, shocked, "What?" His voice rose slightly, and several customers turned their heads. Marina did not flinch. She explained that this was something her mother used in old rituals meant to help with hearing problems. Raul blinked, struggling to process the idea. A centipede was the last thing he expected. He told her he was not comfortable with this, but Marina raised her hand gently, asking him to wait. She said she understood his fear, but she also said her mother had used this method on her, and it had worked. Raul stared at her, torn between disbelief and a strange curiosity. Before he could argue further, Marina knelt beside Leonardo. She unscrewed the lid of the jar carefully, moving slowly as if she had done this many times before. Raul leaned forward, one hand half raised as if ready to stop her, but he froze when she looked at him very seriously. Her voice was calm but firm when she said, "Silence, I know what I'm doing." Those words made Raoul hesitate. Something about the way she spoke, steady, confident, left him unsure. She then brought the jar closer to Leonardo's ear. Raoul's eyes widened again, his heart pounding with uncertainty. The diner felt completely different now. The sound of forks, voices, and clinking dishes faded, as everyone sensed something unusual happening. Even those who did not understand what they were seeing stopped to watch. Marina kept her focus on Leonardo, steadying her hand as she positioned the jar near his ear. For a moment, nothing happened. Marina stayed still, her face concentrated, while Raoul watched with a mix of fear and hope he did not want to admit. Leonardo did not react at first. He simply sat there, quiet and still as always. Raoul wondered if this was a mistake, if he should have stopped her earlier. His stomach tightened as seconds passed without any sign of change. The silence in the diner grew heavier. No one moved, no one spoke. People exchanged confused glances but did not interfere. Raoul kept his eyes fixed on his son, waiting for something, anything. Marina did not pull away. Her calm expression did not break. She looked as if she believed deeply in what she was doing, and that alone kept Raoul from reaching out to stop her. He held his breath, unsure what to expect. Then suddenly Leonardo blinked. It was a simple, small movement, but it made Raoul's whole body tense. Leonardo lifted one hand and touched his ear, as if something felt different. Raoul leaned closer, eyes wide. Before he could say a word, a loud sound came from the counter behind them, a glass cup falling and hitting the surface. It was not a dramatic crash, just a quick, sharp noise. But what happened next made Raoul freeze completely. Leonardo turned. His head moved toward the sound. It was not random. It was a reaction. Raoul felt his breath catch as he stared at his son, who had never reacted to sound before. Marina's eyes widened slightly, but she stayed quiet, watching carefully. Raoul looked at her, unable to speak, shock spreading across his face. Something had changed in that moment, something he had never seen in all the years of tests and treatments. Raoul felt the world shift around him. He looked at Leonardo again, trying to process what he had just witnessed. His heart raced, and he felt both fear and hope rising at the same time. Leonardo's hand stayed near his ear, and his eyes moved slowly around the diner as if he sensed something new. Raoul had no words. He did not understand how this was possible, and yet he had seen it with his own eyes. He wanted to ask Marina 100 questions at once, but his voice would not come out. Marina closed the jar calmly and stood up. She did not look triumphant or proud. She looked thoughtful, almost cautious, as if she understood how fragile the moment was. Raoul placed a hand on the table to steady himself, still processing the scene. He felt overwhelmed, confused, scared to believe too quickly, yet unable to deny what had just happened. The diner remained quiet, with people staring in disbelief. Raoul finally looked at Marina, and for the first time he saw her not just as a waitress, but as someone holding a piece of hope he thought he had lost forever. Raoul spent the next days in a state of shock, unable to fully understand what he had seen at the diner. Still, he moved quickly because he needed answers. He scheduled new exams for Leonardo right away. They went from clinic to clinic, repeating tests that had always shown the same result before. Complete silence. But this time, something was different. The doctors looked confused as they reviewed the results. Machines that had shown no response for years now displayed small, but clear signs of auditory activity. Raoul watched every reaction from the specialists, trying to understand what they were seeing. They repeated the tests to be sure, and the results stayed the same. Raoul felt nervous, excited and scared all at once. He did not know how this change had happened, but he could not deny it. When they returned home, he stared at Leonardo, searching for any new sign. The boy seemed slightly more aware of his surroundings, turning his head sometimes as if noticing faint noises. Raoul felt something he had not felt in a long time, cautious hope. As the days went by, the doctor suggested simple hearing devices and basic exercises for Leonardo. They explained that, even with small signs of hearing, he would need practice to understand sounds. Raoul agreed to everything immediately. He watched Leonardo try the new devices. At first, the boy seemed confused, touching the equipment and blinking often. Raoul kept a close eye on him, worried the boy might feel uncomfortable. Then something changed. When a therapist clapped her hands at a distance, Leonardo paused. He looked around, searching for the source. It was not perfect, not clear, not steady, but it was a reaction. Raul sat in the corner of the room, hands shaking as he tried to hold back emotion. In the following sessions, Leonardo started reacting to more sounds: a soft whistle, a short beep, even the rustle of paper. The therapists encouraged small vocal exercises, and soon Leonardo began making tiny noises, simple babbles that had never existed before. Raul listened to them like they were the most important sounds in the world. Every new sound Leonardo made felt like a victory to Raul. He still could not understand how something so surprising had happened after years of silence, but he knew where the turning point had occurred. His mind kept returning to the diner and to Marina. Her calm face, her steady voice, her insistence that she knew what she was doing, those moments replayed in his head each night. Raul realized he could not continue without thanking her properly. So, after one of Leonardo's therapy sessions, he drove back to the old diner. He walked inside, feeling strangely nervous. When Marina noticed him standing near the entrance, she looked surprised. She approached slowly, wiping her hands on her apron, unsure of why he had returned. Raul struggled to find the right words, but eventually he managed to thank her for what she had done. He said he did not understand how it worked, but something had changed in his son, and he knew she had been the reason. Marina lowered her head as Raul spoke. She looked embarrassed, almost uncomfortable with the gratitude. She told him again that she had only repeated something her mother once did for her. She explained in a quiet voice that she also had not heard or spoken when she was a child. Her mother, a simple healer who had fled difficult times in another country, had used the same ritual on her. Marina said the doctors never understood exactly how she improved, but after that day, her hearing and speech slowly developed. When she finished speaking, she looked unsure, as if she expected Raul not to believe her. Instead, Raul listened carefully, trying to process what she had shared. It surprised him how honest and open she was. She did not claim to have special abilities. She did not claim to know everything. She only repeated what she had lived. Raul asked her why she had never mentioned this before, and Marina explained that she rarely talked about her past. She lost her parents when she was still young and had spent most of her life trying to survive on her own. She learned to work early, moving from place to place, and never had the chance to share her story with anyone. Marina kept talking with her eyes focused on the floor, clearly uncomfortable revealing so much. Raul felt something shift inside him as he listened. He had met many people in his life who tried to get close to him for money, favors, or status. He had learned to be careful, to question motives, to doubt people who approached him. But Marina did not ask for anything. She was not trying to impress him or take advantage of the situation. She simply cared about what happened to Leonardo. That honesty felt unusual and strangely refreshing to Raul. When Raul thanked her again, Marina shook her head, insisting she did not want credit or rewards. The only thing she hoped for was that Leonardo continued to improve. She said she liked seeing the boy at the diner because he reminded her of herself when she was younger, lost in silence and searching for a way out. Raul felt moved by her sincerity. He saw no selfishness, no hidden intentions, just someone who wanted to help because she understood pain. Standing there in the quiet diner, Raul realized how rare it was to meet someone like her. He felt grateful not only for what she had done for Leonardo, but also for the kindness she had shown without expecting anything back. As he prepared to leave, Marina simply wished him and Leonardo well. Raul walked out of the diner with a clearer mind, holding on to the hope that with each passing day, his son would continue finding more sound in the world. Raul started visiting the diner more often, not only because he liked the quiet mornings there, but mainly because Leonardo kept asking to see Marina. The boy's words were still unclear, sometimes difficult to understand, but the intention was always obvious. He pointed toward the street when they left home, repeating Marina's name in his own simple way. Raul noticed how excited Leonardo became every time they walked through the diner door. His eyes searched for her right away, ignoring the noise and movement around him. Marina always greeted him with a warm smile, even when she was busy carrying trays or cleaning tables. Raul watched the way Leonardo relaxed near her. It was something he did not see anywhere else. He realized that these visits were becoming an important part of Leonardo's routine. so he stopped trying to limit them. Instead, he learned to appreciate the comfort they brought. Every morning spent at the diner felt lighter, and for the first time in a long while, Raul did not feel completely alone in the responsibility of helping his son grow. Marina soon noticed that Leonardo was trying to speak more, even if the sounds were not always clear. She gently began guiding him, using small exercises her mother once used with her. She drew simple pictures on napkins and asked Leonardo to name them, even if the words came out imperfect. Sometimes she tapped rhythms on the table and encouraged him to repeat the sounds. Other times she hummed short tunes so he could try to follow along. She used gestures to help him connect meanings to movements. Raul watched as Leonardo responded with surprising enthusiasm. The boy leaned closer, paying attention in a way he rarely did with anyone else. Sometimes he giggled when Marina made a funny face to teach him a sound. Other times he repeated a noise over and over, trying to get it right. These moments made Raul pause and appreciate the gentle progress happening right in front of him. It was slow, but it felt real. As days passed, Leonardo began to change in ways Raul had never seen before. The boy started smiling more often, showing expressions that had once been rare. He attempted new sounds on his own, even when no one asked. When he wanted something, he created little hand signs to express it, often ones only Marina seemed to understand at first. She was patient, repeating the signs with him until Raul learned them too. Leonardo's confidence grew with each small success. He clapped when he managed a new sound and looked at Marina for approval, which she always gave with a proud smile. Raul felt something warm building inside him each time he saw these interactions. He realized he had been living with a constant weight for years, but watching Leonardo open up made that heaviness lift little by little. Each new word attempt, each smile, each small step made Raul believe that progress was possible. Raul found himself staying longer at the diner, simply because he enjoyed watching Leonardo learn with Marina. He appreciated how naturally she handled everything, never forcing the boy to do more than he could. Her approach was gentle but consistent. After some time, Raul began inviting Marina to come to the apartment on weekends. He made the invitations carefully, always respectful, aware that she had her own schedule and responsibilities. Marina accepted the invitations with a shy smile, and soon she started spending time with them outside the diner setting. At home, she continued the simple exercises with Leonardo. She sat on the living room carpet with him, drawing pictures or singing small melodies, helping him feel comfortable speaking aloud. Raul stayed nearby, observing their sessions with quiet gratitude. He appreciated that she treated Leonardo with patience and kindness, rather than pressure or pity. Gradually, the atmosphere inside Raul's apartment began to change. The space that had once felt cold and silent started filling with small, warm moments. Leonardo's drawings began covering parts of the walls, adding bright colors to rooms that had always looked too empty. Marina sometimes brought ingredients and baked a simple cake, filling the apartment with a pleasant smell that made everything feel more like a home. On weekends, Leonardo occasionally laughed out loud, a sound Raul never thought he would hear. Raul found himself smiling more often as he watched Marina and Leonardo interact. He felt comfortable around her, something that did not happen easily for him. He began to enjoy her presence not only because she helped Leonardo, but because she brought a natural warmth that he had missed for years. The more time Marina spent at the apartment, the more Raul noticed how much she influenced Leonardo's progress. The boy seemed motivated whenever she was around. He attempted sounds with more courage, made new gestures, and even approached Raul with attempts at communication inspired by what he practiced with her. Raul felt grateful in a way he could not fully express. This gratitude slowly shifted into something deeper, a feeling of calm and quiet hope that surrounded him whenever Marina was present. He did not rush it or try to define it. Instead, he allowed things to unfold naturally. For the first time since his wife's passing, Raul felt that the house was no longer just a place to live. It was becoming a place where life happened again. And at the center of that change were Marina's patient guidance and Leonardo's growing voice, shaping a new chapter that Raul had never expected but was learning to appreciate more each day. Raul began to notice a change inside himself, something he did not expect and at first tried to ignore. What had started as gratitude toward Marina slowly turned into a deeper feeling. He realized this when he caught himself looking at the clock, waiting for the moment she would arrive. Her visits, once focused only on helping Leonardo, now felt like the highlight of his day. Whenever he heard a soft knock on the door, he felt a small rush of warmth before he even opened it. Marina seemed to sense a change too, even if she did not speak about it. Before knocking, she often glanced at her reflection in the window, smoothing her hair or adjusting her shirt, as if she wanted to look a little better without fully understanding why. The atmosphere between them became softer, more careful. Raul tried to act normal, but he felt nervous around her in ways he had not felt in years. He suspected she felt the same, though neither dared to say anything. Still, the connection grew each day in quiet, natural steps. Leonardo continued improving and started forming clearer sounds. One day, while trying to call Marina's name, he said, "Marina," stretching the syllables carefully. Both Raul and Marina froze at the sound. It was the clearest word he had ever spoken. Marina covered her mouth in surprise, and Raul felt his chest tighten with emotion. Soon after, Leonardo began using a new version of her name, "My Marina." Hearing this shook Raul deeply. He felt a mixture of joy and pain. Joy because Leonardo finally felt safe enough to give someone such an important title. Pain because it reminded him of Helena, the woman he lost, and the mother Leonardo never knew. Raul stood quietly for a long time that day, trying to manage the storm of emotions inside him. He realized Marina was becoming a central part of their lives, and Leonardo's affection for her made that even clearer. Raul did not want to rush anything, but he also could not deny what was growing between them. As the days passed, Raul thought more about Helena. He remembered their life together, and how different everything had been back then. Thinking about her used to bring pain, but now he felt something more complicated. He wondered if allowing himself to care for Marina meant he was forgetting Helena, which he never wanted to do. At the same time, he knew that life had changed, and he could not stay frozen in the past. He watched Leonardo interact with Marina, and he saw a kind of happiness he had not seen before. That happiness made him understand that Marina was not replacing anyone. She was simply filling a space that had been empty for a long time. Raul found himself wanting her around, not only for Leonardo's sake, but for his own. The realization scared him, but he also felt relief, like something inside him was finally waking up again. He allowed the feeling to settle slowly, without pressure or fear. One peaceful night, after a long day of activities, Raul put Leonardo to bed. The boy fell asleep quickly, tired from practicing new sounds and playing with Marina. Raul stepped out to the balcony, wanting a moment to breathe. Marina joined him a few minutes later, holding a warm cup of tea she had made. They stood side by side in silence for a while. It was a comfortable silence, one that did not need words. Eventually, Marina spoke softly, telling Raul something she had never told anyone. She admitted she had never truly had a family. She said she grew up moving from place to place and always felt like she was in the way. She confessed that sometimes she still believed she did not deserve to belong anywhere. As she spoke, her voice trembled a little. Raul listened carefully, feeling protective of her in a way he had not expected. He told her she did deserve a family, and that Leonardo already saw her as someone important. He said her kindness had brought life back into their home. Marina looked down, unsure how to respond. Raul continued, sharing something he rarely admitted. He told her that he had not felt at home in a very long time, not since Helena's death. He explained that grief had made everything feel cold and heavy, and he had accepted that this was simply how life would remain. But when Marina arrived, something inside him changed. He said that being around her made the house feel warm again, made him feel calmer, safer, and strangely at peace. Marina lifted her eyes slowly, meeting his. There was a softness there mixed with doubt and hope. Raul did not rush to touch her or step closer. He let the moment breathe, giving her space to understand what he meant. They stood facing each other, both unsure yet drawn together by something that had been growing quietly for months. Finally, Marina whispered that she did not know if she was ready for something so big. Raul admitted that he did not know either, but he felt something real, something worth exploring gently. The honesty between them made the tension melt into something tender. Raul reached out slowly, giving her time to pull away if she wanted. She did not. Instead, she took a small step closer. Their faces were only inches apart now. With a calm breath, Raul leaned forward, and Marina met him halfway. Their first kiss was soft and hesitant. filled with fear and hope at the same time. It lasted only a moment, but it carried the weight of everything they had both been holding inside. When they pulled back, neither spoke. They simply stood there, knowing something important had changed. The kiss did not solve everything, but it marked the beginning of a new chapter, one built not on gratitude, but on something deeper, something that felt like the start of a real family. When the news about Raul and Marina's relationship began to spread through the Montero family, it did not take long for it to reach his mother, Beatriz. She had always been a strict woman who cared deeply about appearances and status. To her, everything needed to look perfect, including the people connected to the family. When she learned that Raul was seeing someone who had once been a diner waitress, she reacted with shock and disbelief. She started asking questions, calling relatives, and gathering every small detail she could find about Marina's life. It did not take long before she learned that Marina had grown up poor, had no surviving relatives, and had worked small jobs to support herself. Instead of showing empathy, Beatriz saw this as a threat to the family image. She became convinced that Marina was taking advantage of Raul and Leonardo. With each passing day, her anger grew, and she began planning a confrontation. She arranged a formal family dinner, inviting not only relatives but a few business partners as well, believing it was the perfect place to expose what she thought was the truth. The dinner was held in a large dining room with a long polished table, the kind used for impressive gatherings and celebrations. But the atmosphere that evening was tense from the moment everyone sat down. Marina felt uncomfortable as soon as she entered the room. She noticed the way some relatives stared at her, whispering quietly to one another. Raul sat beside her, trying to keep her calm with reassurances, but she could feel his worry too. The meal began politely, with forced conversation and stiff smiles, but it did not stay that way for long. Halfway through the evening, Beatriz cleared her throat loudly, drawing everyone's attention. She said she wanted to speak about something important concerning her son's life. Marina felt her stomach tighten. Beatriz then began talking about Marina's background, speaking in a tone that made it clear she did not approve. She mentioned Marina's job as a waitress and her lack of family, and she asked in front of everyone how such a person had suddenly entered the life of a wealthy family like theirs. The room fell silent. Marina felt her face grow hot as she listened to Beatriz's words. It became worse when Beatriz suggested that Marina had used Leonardo's condition as a way to gain Raul's trust. She called the situation a miracle story that conveniently put Marina in a favorable position. Marina felt as though the floor had disappeared beneath her. She had worked so hard to rebuild her life, to leave behind the pain and judgment she had grown up with. Hearing these accusations brought back old wounds she thought were long gone. Beatriz then took things even further. She pulled out an envelope and placed it on the table, pushing it toward Marina. She said there was money inside, enough for Marina to go start a new life somewhere far away. The message was clear: leave Raul and Leonardo and disappear. Gasps were heard around the table. Marina felt sick, barely able to speak. Tears gathered in her eyes, not only from hurt but from shame, because she realized that no matter what she did, people like Beatriz would always see her as someone unworthy. Before Marina could respond, Raul stood up abruptly, his chair scraping loudly against the floor. Everyone turned to him, expecting him to calm the situation or apologize for the discomfort. But Raul's expression was firm, and there was no hesitation in his voice. He told his mother to stop immediately. He said that Marina had never asked for anything from him, and that everything she did was out of kindness and genuine care for Leonardo. He reminded everyone that she was the one who helped bring sound back into their son's world, something that no doctor had succeeded in doing. He spoke clearly, saying that Marina had changed their lives for the better, and that he would not allow anyone to insult her. Marina looked up at him, shocked by the strength in his words. Raul then declared that he would not give her up no matter what the family thought. His voice echoed across the room, leaving everyone stunned. Beatriz was furious. She stood up as well, pointing out that Raul was putting the entire family reputation at risk. She said that if he chose to stay with Marina, he might lose his place in the company and any rights to the Montero inheritance. Some relatives nodded in agreement, while others looked uncomfortable. Business partners exchanged uneasy glances, unsure how such a personal conflict had become part of the evening. Raul did not back down. He said he did not care about the inheritance or the business if the price was giving up the woman who helped his son and brought warmth back to their home. His words created an even larger divide in the room. Marina sat there feeling a mix of fear, gratitude, and disbelief. She had never expected Raul to defend her so fiercely, especially against his powerful family. The dining table, once a symbol of luxury and unity, now felt more like a battlefield. Every person sitting there seemed frozen, unsure of how to respond to the emotional explosion they had just witnessed. Marina felt overwhelmed but also strangely relieved. For so long, she had fought alone through life's challenges, always expecting people to turn against her. But now, for the first time, someone stood by her side without hesitation. Raul reached for her hand, giving her silent reassurance. The evening ended with no resolution. Some relatives left quickly, whispering among themselves, while others stayed silent, unsure of what the future of the Montero family would look like. But one thing was clear: Raul had made his choice, and even though it meant facing consequences, he refused to let prejudice and fear decide the path of his life, or the life of the woman he cared for. Marina spent the days after the family dinner feeling overwhelmed and confused. Beatrice's harsh words repeated in her mind over and over, making her doubt everything she had built with Raul and Leonardo. She worried that she had stepped into a life that was not meant for her, a world where she would always be judged for her past. The shame she felt reminded her of old memories she had tried to forget, memories of people treating her as if she did not belong anywhere. Because of this, Marina convinced herself that leaving might be the best option. She started creating small excuses to avoid going to Raul's apartment. She said she was tired or had extra shifts, even when it wasn't true. She told herself it was temporary, just until things settled, but deep down she was preparing to disappear completely. Each excuse hurt her more than she expected, but she believed she was protecting Raul and Leonardo from more conflict. She thought that by stepping away, she might help repair the damage she had caused between Raul and his family. Leonardo, however, noticed the change right away. He waited by the door on days when Marina usually visited, holding a drawing or a toy he wanted to show her. When she did not come, he became restless and confused. He tried to say her name, calling Marina in his soft new voice. When she still did not appear, his calls turned into sad cries. He walked around the apartment searching for her, using the gestures she had taught him, holding his hands out as if asking where she had gone. Raul watched this with growing concern. It was the first time Leonardo showed fear so clearly, the fear of being left behind again. Raul tried to comfort him, but nothing worked. At bedtime, Leonardo whispered her name again, as if afraid she would disappear forever. Seeing his son this way made something inside Raul tighten. He realized Marina's absence was not only affecting him, but hurting Leonardo deeply. That was when Raul understood he could not stay silent or wait for Marina to return on her own. Raul decided to find her. He remembered that Marina lived in a small rented room in the back area of the city. It was a simple place she never talked much about, but he knew where it was. That evening, after putting Leonardo to sleep, he drove there with determination. When he arrived, he found her sitting on the edge of her bed, looking as if she had been crying. The room was small, barely big enough for a bed and a drawer, and it made Raul's chest tighten to think of her facing everything alone. Marina looked startled when she saw him at the door. She started to apologize immediately, saying she didn't want to cause more problems for him or his family. Raul stepped into the room and told her firmly that she had misunderstood everything. He said he didn't care about the family's threats or their judgment. What he cared about was her and Leonardo. Marina listened but kept shaking her head, saying she didn't want to ruin his life. Raul then told her that the only thing capable of ruining his life was losing the home he found with her and his son. Raul sat beside her and said he was willing to give up the company, the inheritance, and the family name, if that was the cost of keeping them together. He said none of those things mattered anymore, not compared to the happiness and peace Marina brought into their lives. Marina stared at him, unable to speak. No one had ever chosen her before. People had always walked away from her or treated her like an inconvenience. Hearing Raul say he would give up everything for her made tears fall from her eyes. She told him that she had spent her whole life believing she wasn't enough for anyone to stay. Raul took her hand and told her she was more than enough, and that Leonardo's progress and joy were proof of it. Marina felt a warmth spread through her chest, something she had never felt so strongly. For the first time in her life, she felt chosen, valued, and seen. After a long moment, Marina nodded slowly and said she didn't want to run anymore. She confessed she wanted to stay, but fear had convinced her to leave before she could be hurt again. Raul promised he would stand with her no matter the consequences. They talked openly for the first time about their fears, their hopes, and the life they wanted to build for Leonardo. The conversation was filled with emotion, but also clarity. They both understood that the only way forward was together. The heaviness that had been crushing Marina began to lift. Raul stayed with her until she felt calm, and before leaving, he told her that she would never have to face anything alone again. She believed him, not because of his words alone, but because of the sincerity she saw in his eyes. For the first time, the idea of a real family felt possible. In the following days, Raul made his decision public. He met with the family and told them he would not step away from Marina or hide their relationship to please anyone. He spoke clearly and firmly, saying he was ready to accept whatever consequences they wanted to impose. Some relatives tried to argue, saying he was making a mistake. Beatriz reminded him of the business and the wealth he stood to inherit, but Raul did not move from his position. He said that if the price of keeping those things was losing Marina and hurting Leonardo, then he did not want them. The statement shocked the entire room. Some members of the family were furious. Others were stunned into silence, but Raul did not waver. When he walked out of that meeting, he felt lighter than he had in years. He had finally made a choice based on love, not expectations. That day became a turning point for all of them. Raul returned to Marina and Leonardo with a sense of peace. Marina welcomed him with a mix of relief and emotion, understanding how much that decision meant. Leonardo ran to her, clinging to her with a happiness that said more than words ever could. Raul looked at them together and realized that this was his true family. He had proved to himself, and to everyone else, that there were things money could never buy: love, belonging, and the feeling of home. And for the first time, all three of them stood together ready to face whatever came next. Not as separate pieces, but as a family that chose each other despite everything. Months later, the day of the wedding arrived. Raul and Marina chose a simple ceremony, nothing extravagant or filled with luxury. They wanted something honest, something that represented the life they had built together. The small hall was decorated with soft colors, and only the closest people were invited. Marina looked nervous but happy as she adjusted her dress, which was modest but beautiful. Raul felt a tightness in his chest as he waited at the front, realizing how far they had come. When the ceremony began, everyone turned their attention to the entrance. Leonardo walked slowly down the aisle, carrying the rings with both hands. His steps were careful, but his face showed pride. He spoke clearly, repeating the phrases he had practiced for weeks. "Thank you for being my mother, and now we are a family." His voice was small but steady, and the room filled with emotion. Marina covered her mouth, tears gathering in her eyes. For Raul, hearing those words from his son felt like a gift he had never imagined receiving. It was the perfect beginning to a new chapter for all three of them. Some relatives who had once judged their relationship came to the ceremony quietly. They stood in the back, unsure of how they would be received. They had watched Leonardo's progress from a distance and had slowly begun to understand how much Marina meant to him and to Raul. Seeing the boy now, smiling confidently, speaking words they once believed he would never say, softened many hearts. They approached Raul after the ceremony, offering cautious congratulations. Others simply nodded, ashamed of how they had behaved before. Raul accepted their presence without anger. He knew things would never be perfect, but he appreciated that they were trying. The important thing was that they were beginning to see Marina for who she truly was, not for the past she came from. Marina, still emotional from the ceremony, greeted them politely, grateful that the tension of the past was slowly fading away. As the weeks passed, life settled into a new rhythm. Their home, once quiet and filled with heavy silence, now buzzed with activity. Mornings became a warm routine. The three of them made breakfast together, sometimes burning toast or spilling juice, but always laughing about it. Leonardo loved running around the house chasing after Marina or rushing to show Raul a new drawing. His voice, once hesitant, grew stronger. Sometimes he spoke only a few words, sometimes short sentences, but every sound he made felt like a celebration. Marina's laughter echoed through the rooms, filling the home with a comfort Raul had not felt since before Helena's passing. The apartment slowly changed, not through decoration, but through the everyday moments that happened inside it. Toys on the floor, drawings taped to the walls, the smell of Marina's cooking and Leonardo's voice calling for them from different rooms. These were the signs of a family finally building a life together. One evening, snow began to fall lightly outside the windows. The city looked peaceful under the soft white layer. Inside, the house was warm, dimly lit by a small lamp near the sofa. After a long day, Marina and Leonardo fell asleep together, wrapped under the same blanket. Marina's arm rested around him, and Leonardo's small head leaned against her shoulder. Raul stood in the doorway for a long moment, watching them. He felt a wave of emotion rise inside him. For years, he had chased success, believing that control and power would bring him happiness. But now, in this simple scene, his wife and his son asleep on the couch, he saw something he had never seen before: true belonging. He felt grounded in a way he never had as a businessman. He realized that this was what he had been searching for all along, even when he didn't know it. Raul walked closer and gently adjusted the blanket over them. The soft sound of Marina's breathing and Leonardo's faint murmurs filled the room. Raul sat beside them, feeling more at peace than he ever had. The snow continued falling outside, but inside the house, everything felt warm and safe. Raul leaned back and closed his eyes for a moment, letting the comfort settle in his chest. The life he once feared he would never have had finally become real. As the story closes, Leonardo wakes from his nap and climbs onto Raul's lap. With a proud smile, he begins telling the same story he loves to repeat: the day a waitress put a centipede in his ear. His voice is full of excitement, and he explains how that strange moment gave him the chance to hear the world. Then he finishes with his favorite part, that along with sound, he also found a home. Raul listens, smiling softly, knowing every word is true. The sound of Leonardo's voice fills the room, blending with Marina's gentle breathing. Together, they create the sound of a family, the sound of a new home. If you enjoyed today's story and want more tales filled with emotion, mystery, and unbelievable twists, make sure to hit subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss a new episode here on Muller Tales. And don't forget, drop a comment below telling us where you're watching from and what part of this story touched you the most. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next tale.